Good morning. You can do better. Good morning. There we go. You guys are definitely more awake than the other. It's like every service gets more and more awake. I don't know why that is. I mean, that first service, they're just sleeping through the whole thing, I think. Grab your Bibles. You're going to need your Bibles. If you don't have one, raise your hand and somebody will ignore you and eventually you'll go get one or something. I don't know what's going to happen. No, they'll bring one to you. We're in our red letter series still. I want to let you in on a little secret while you're grabbing your Bibles. Now, I know this is going to be a big shock to some of you, but I am a huge Bronco fan. I know. It is good to see here in this service, though, that each section has a Bronco representation of some sort, right? We got some in the front. Everyone has some, and that's good. And there's one Packer fan right there in the middle, standing out like a sore thumb. And Bears fan, we'll pray for you. You need some help, my friend. So I went to because I'm a huge Bronco fan, actually not because of that, but I guess in a way, I got to go to the Bronco game this past Monday night. And the cool thing about that Bronco game was that not only did they win, but at halftime they inducted 3 new Ring of Fame guys into the Hall of Fame. Do you guys know who it was? Who was it? Simon Fletcher, John Lynch, and Jason Elam. And each one of them has done great things for the Broncos. But the cool thing was when they did that, I started looking at all the names in the Ring of Fame. There's some powerful names in there. And it got me to thinking, who is the greatest Bronco of all time? And there is a right answer. It is John Elway. Did you hear my son said it? Because it has been plastered into his head. John Elway is the great. You do not speak ill of John Elway in my household. You will find yourself homeless. That's what will happen in my house. But as I started to think about that this week, I started to ask this question. You see the sermon titles, who's the greatest? So I started to think about some of who are the greatest people. We're going to start off with football. Now, here's the deal. I want each section to give me, although some of them are going to be pretty simple, to give me a representation. I want you to shout out who you think the greatest of all time is, all right? So let's start with who's the greatest quarterback, not just for the Broncos, but the greatest quarterback of all time. I heard Tom Brady, John Elway, Peyton Manning. What's that? Tebow. I don't know what to do with that right now. Montana, I heard. And by the way, here's how it's going to go. You're going to give me your answers, and then I'm going to show the right answer on the screen. Okay, so I heard all of those. Here's the right answer. It's John Elway. And that was the greatest moment of all time. Sorry, man, I had to. We got so many Packer fans around here. I had to show the helicopter moment. I almost lost my mind in that moment. It was a great time. All right, here's an easier one. Who's the greatest boxer of all time? Okay, Muhammad Ali. Do you have any other names? Joe Frazier. Sugar Ray. Rocky. No, real people. How about Tyson? No, he's not in there. I would love to see a Tyson Ali fight, though. Tyson at his height, Ali. Here's the right answer. You had it. It's Ali. All right, now we're going to switch sports. Let's go to baseball. Who's the greatest hitter of all time? Okay, Babe Ruth. Ted Williams. Ty Cobb. Pete Rose. That's a controversial choice, so I'll give you that one. Any other thoughts? Barry Bonds. You know, he's drugged up, but here's the right answer. Yeah, I think you guys got it. This one is easy. Who's the greatest basketball player of all time? What did I hear over here? Shaq. I will tell you, that is the first time in 3 services Shaq's name has come up. That does not surprise me. Michael Jordan. Jordan, Kareem, Magic, Larry Bird. You got to have the white guy in there, right? All right, here's the greatest all. There's no question. It's Jordan. You can boo all you want. He's still the greatest basketball player of all time. All right, now some of you are not sports fans, right? So we're going to shift gears a little bit. It's not all about sports. Let's ask this one. Who's the richest person of all time? Now, I will tell you before you start answering, we're adjusting for inflation. All right, because you get some of these old guys if you gave the money that they actually had and compared it now, it wouldn't seem like much. So we're adjusting it for inflation. I heard Gates. Here's going to be a gauge of where we're going. Gates is number 12 on the list. Vanderbilt, Hughes, Rockefeller was number 3 on the list. Here's number 1. No one's ever going to get it. Yeah, King Mansa Musa I. He was a king in Africa. But listen to this. The dude was worth, in today's value, $400 billion. That's a lot of money. That's the guy you want to get to know. Okay, so this next one is for all of you who are 25 and under. The rest of us, just play along, all right? So here's your question. Who has the most Instagram and Twitter followers of all time? Now, some of you are wondering, how many of you are going, what's Instagram? Yeah, you guys just fall asleep for a second. You can take a little nap. All right, let's start with Instagram. Who's got the most Instagram followers of all time? Kardashian is not even close. Bieber? Nope. Okay, here I'm going to give you a little hint. So here's actually the number 1 is Instagram. I know it's cheating, but Instagram has their own Instagram account, and there are 189 million people following Instagram. The second place has 99 million. So we're not going to use that one. We're going to use, what did you say, number 2? Say it out loud. Selena Gomez is number 2. She has 99 million followers. Who here in the room follows Selena Gomez on Instagram? I'm just going to leave that alone. All right. Now, how about Twitter? So we got Selena, and I'll tell you it's not Selena and it's not Kim Kardashian. Any guesses? Swift. You're getting closer. Trump is not on the list. What? Ariana Grande. Nope, she's close. I think she's number 2. Here's number 1. Katy Perry has 93 million followers. Now, I will tell you, it was difficult for me to find a picture of Katy Perry that I could show on a Sunday morning at church. But I persevered, and I found she's kind of got hair like yours, right? Yeah, she's sinking down. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Okay. All of those people are great in their particular fields, yes? But did they change the world? Certainly no one on the screen right now, right? So let's ask the big question. Who's the greatest human of all time? Now, don't shout out your answers yet. I'm going to give each section, there's a top 3, and we're going to get them all, okay? So I'm going to start with you guys. Who's the greatest human of all time? Jesus. They got the easy one. You guys don't get to use that one, okay? So now, who's number 2 on the list? We got Gandhi, all right? And now you can't use Gandhi or Jesus. Mother Teresa, those are the first 3. Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and Jesus. We all got them just like that, right? Now, these are not necessarily in order. What makes all 3 of these people, all 3 of these humans, the greatest humans of all time? Sacrifice, service, faith, love. All great things, right? Compassion. Do you want to be like these people? Anybody want to be like these people? Now, there's 2 kinds of greatness, right? So there's Michael Jordan, Taylor Swift, Katy Perry kind of greatness. How many of you would like to be able to dunk a basketball like Michael Jordan? I would. This white boy can't jump. I just love the feeling one time, unassisted, just to hammer that thing down, right? That's one kind of greatness. We could lower the basket. But that's cheating. I want to be able to do it for real. No trampoline, nothing. Just unassisted, be able to slam it. I know it's not going to happen. That's okay. How do we become great like these people, right? Am I ever going to become Michael Jordan great? No. John Elway great? No. Babe Ruth great? No. It's not pretty when you see me in the batting cage. Can we become this kind of great? Yes, we can. And this kind of greatness is what Jesus is talking about today. So I want you to grab your Bibles. We're going to be in Mark chapter 10. Now, I want you to keep your finger in Mark. We're going to be in a couple of different passages. But we're going to start in Mark chapter 10, starting in verse 35. And this is one of my favorite verses. So while you're getting there, I'm going to take a swig of water. This is one of my favorite stories. Are we ready? All right. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him, Jesus. Teacher, they said, we want you to do us a favor. Have you ever had someone come to you and ask you for a favor, but they wouldn't tell you what the favor was, so you agreed to do it? That's kind of what James and John are doing. Hey, Jesus, would you do us a favor? But Jesus doesn't fall for it. He says, what's your request? They replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. But Jesus said to them, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering that I must be baptized with? Now, for normal human beings, that response would give you pause, wouldn't it? Hey, Jesus, would you let us sit at your right and left hand in these places of honor and position? And Jesus says, guys, in order to have that, you're going to have to suffer the way that I'm going to suffer. And most of us would think, let me think about it for a second. But not James and John. Oh, yeah, we're able, they replied. No problem. Something wrong up there, right? Jesus continues, you will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering. But I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. God has prepared those places for the ones that he has chosen. And then when the other 10 disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. How dare you ask? Now, James and John come to Jesus, and do they say, we would like to earn our way into the right and left hand of God? Now, what did they say? Would you give it to me? Would you give us these positions? Now, I also love, in one of the other Gospels, it's not even James or John who asked Jesus. Who is it? Yeah, mommy goes and asks Jesus on their behalf. They don't even have the guts to go ask him themselves. They send mom to go ask. And Jesus says, guys, there's suffering that's going to be required in order to take one of those places. But they think, I'm all that in a bag of chips. I can do anything you can do, Jesus. We want those places of power and position. And it's a good thing none of us ever want that, right? Now, I'm sure the disciples learned, and we're not going to get into how Jesus answers yet, but you can imagine how Jesus answered, right? He did tell them, that's not my place. So you would have think that they would have let this go. I want you to keep your finger on Mark, and I want you now to turn over to Luke chapter 22. We're going to start in verse 21. Before we get to verse 21, I want to set the scene because it's mind-boggling when you understand what's going on. This is the Last Supper. Jesus and his disciples are eating the Passover meal. It's the last meal that they will eat together. Jesus has told his disciples, I'm going to die for you. In fact, he gives them the communion that we follow. During the Passover meal, he takes the bread and he breaks it and he gives it to his disciples and he says, this is my body that is broken for you. He's telling his disciples, my body is about to be broken and I want you to remember what's about to happen. And then later in the meal, he takes the cup of salvation. He says, this is my cup. This is my blood that is spilled for you. I'm about to die. My body will be broken. My blood will be spilled. It's a sacrifice for you. It's in that moment after giving communion that Jesus drops a bomb on them. So do we understand the weight of this whole thing? It's Jesus' last meal with his disciples, and he's telling them he's going to suffer for them. And then he drops this bomb in verse 21. But here at this table, sitting among us as a friend, is the man who will betray me. For it has been determined that the Son of Man must die, but what sorrow awaits the one who betrays him. Jesus looks around the room, and I think sometimes we think there's a whole bunch of people like this in the room. But how many people were in the room that day? 13. Jesus and the 12 disciples. Just 12 other guys. And he says, one of you men is about to betray me. Now, if you were one of the 12, what would you naturally do? You'd be looking at sizing everybody up, right? That's exactly what the disciples did. They began to ask each other which of them would ever do such a thing. Who would do that? James might. Right? He's kind of squirrely. maybe John, I don't know, Bartholomew. Who names their kid Bartholomew? You can't trust a Bartholomew, right? And they're going around the room, and pretty soon they realize there's 11 dudes in the room who just might do it, but there's only one who wouldn't. Who? Me. I wouldn't. These other 11 losers, they might betray Jesus, but in fact, Peter has the guts to stand up and tell this to Jesus. Jesus, all these other losers, they might betray you, but I never will. I'll go to the death for you. And Jesus knocks him down a peg, doesn't he? And Jesus says, Peter, not only will you not die for me, but you will deny that you even knew me 3 times before this very day is over. You think that shut Peter up? For a little bit. Everyone in the room is thinking, who would do such a thing? But listen to what happens next. In this scene, in this moment, then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. What? Jesus is about to die. He says, one of you is about to betray me. And they start arguing about who's the greatest. No, they start having the same kind of conversation that we had here this morning. Who's the greatest quarterback? What are they asking? Who's the greatest disciple of all? All right, who's the top 3? Let's just have the conversation real quick. Peter, James, John. Okay, I'm going to give you one more. He wasn't even in the room. Paul. That's a big 4, isn't it? In fact, you'd probably argue about who's the greatest, Peter or Paul. Right? You get this big argument. And Peter's in this room. James is in this room. John is in this room. And they're all saying, you're not the greatest. I'm the greatest. James and John, you guys already asked Jesus for a seat, and he shut you down. See, and it's a good thing, again, none of us ever have this conversation, right? None of us ever, I serve in children's ministry, and I'm better than people who serve in coffee ministry. Because people give their children to me. Anybody can make coffee. It takes somebody special to watch children. And the coffee people are going, oh yeah, you think so? You watch what happens around here if we don't make coffee. People can live with their children, but you don't give them coffee, there'll be a revolt. And the greeters are like, oh yeah, well if I don't say good morning just the right way, people won't even come here. Right? John said, yeah, he's in the greeter group. He said, that's right. They're important. Everyone's important, right? But none of y'all is the most important. Y'all know who's the most important. Yeah, it's me. No. But that's how what'd you say? What'd you say? Suzanne, right. That's the game. See, we make fun of the disciples, but that's the game we play, isn't it? Well, I must be the most important. I'm indispensable here. Well, if they would only let me, that's the same conversation that the disciples are having. We look at that and say, how could you guys be so dumb? And the answer is, we're that dumb. We play the same game because our culture tells us who's important. Who's important in our culture? I mean, who are the names we just put on the screen? Celebrities. People with money and fame and power and position, right? We're going through the election season right now. Okay? Thank goodness it will be over soon. I mean, how long we got? 10 days? Oh, 10 days, well, 10-ish days. It depends on how the counting goes, right? We've been through that all. Here's the thing. I got to thinking the other day. If I offered you the job of president, would you take it? I know you would. You're the only one in the room. I would not take that position. Have you seen pictures of presidents when they go into office and when they come out of office? What's wrong with those pictures? Man, they look old. 4 to 8 years. It's like they've never slept. That is a terrible job. Literally, the weight of the world is on your shoulders 24/7. Who in their right mind would take a job like that? Not only are there people who want the job, they are literally fighting tooth and nail to take that job. A billionaire wants that job. Why? It's not to make money. He wants power. and position. I mean, you get President of the United States. Is there anything more powerful than that? Is there a higher position than President of the United States? No, and we know it because we're Americans. That's our president. That's the most powerful position in the world. That's why they want it. The world says the way you succeed, the way you become great is you accumulate wealth, you make sure that people like you, and you have powerful position, right? Listen to what Jesus says. Just continue in this story. The disciples are arguing about who's the greatest. Jesus told them, verse 25, in this world, the kings and great men lord it over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. But among you it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. Then Jesus asks an interesting question. He says, who is the most important? The one who sits at the table or the one who serves? Let's talk about that for a second. Now, I know the spiritual answer, but I want you to give the real answer, and Jesus gives the real answer. Who's more important, the person sitting at the table or the person serving the person sitting at the table? The person sitting. And if you don't believe me, when you go to lunch or dinner sometime this week, if they don't ever bring you your food, let's say they bring everybody else at the table their food, but they don't bring you your food, how are you going to respond? Whose food? Where's my food? Now let's say they bring you the food, but it's the wrong food. Let's say they bring you the food, but it's the wrong food and it has a hair in it. How are you going to respond? Take this away. Away from me, you serf. Bring me my food, right? And you're going to get very angry, and that person will never get a tip. I'm never coming here. I will Yelp this. You'll be sorry. You don't know how important I am in the Yelp world. I have like 5 followers on Instagram. You don't know who you're messing with, right? That's how important I am, because I'm the one sitting. And by the way, here's a quick aside. If you ever want to mess with your server, if you get a really good server, ask them to see their manager. Oh, they do not like that. I've done this. I do this all the time. If you get good service, make sure you're getting good service. Ask the server if you can see their manager. First question they will ask you, is there something wrong? No, there's nothing wrong. Why do you want to see my manager? I would just like to see your manager. What did I do? You didn't do anything. Can I please see your manager? It may take a while, but be persistent. Because they're afraid. Because the only time anyone ever asks for the manager is when things are going badly. That's why you do this. Ask for the manager when the manager gets there, and it's even better if that person is there. Just tell them how great your server did. And then, this is very important, then leave a good tip. Right? Because that doesn't mean anything if you leave them $1, right? Oh, yeah, great. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. That's just a quick aside. All right, now we're back. Jesus answers the question, who's more important, the one sitting or the one serving? The one who sits at the table, of course, but not here. Not here. For I am one among you who serves. Jesus is taking the whole equation, he's turning it upside down. Jesus says it's not the person sitting at the table who's the most important person. The person serving. All right, now go back to the Mark passage. Let's see how he handled James and John and the 12 disciples. Verse 41, here's why. When the 10 other disciples, that's where they came from, heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. We don't like that word, do we? We don't like either one of these words. Jesus says if you want to be great, you'll serve. If you want to be the first, you'll be a slave to everyone. That word has bad cultural connotations for us. But that word slave there actually means something different than what you and I think of. The word that Jesus is using there is actually better translated bondservant. That cleared everything up, right? Here's what a bondservant was. So you had a slave who was owned by somebody, and they had no rights, no freedom. Sometimes the master, the owner of that slave, would free the slave. We're talking in Jesus' time. Could free that slave, give them their freedom. What a bondservant was someone who used to be a slave, who's given their freedom, who comes back and says, I want to be a slave, I want to serve you for the rest of my life. I'm choosing that life. Jesus says, if you want to be great, if you want to be Mother Teresa and Gandhi and Jesus great, he said, if you want to be that kind of great, you need to serve other people. In fact, Jesus goes one step further. Let's look at verse 45. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. If we want to be like Jesus, what do we need to do? We need to serve. If you want to be great, you need to serve. In fact, Jesus, you can turn this around. Jesus would say, if you're not serving other people, if you're not caring for other people, then you are not like me. Ooh, that's hard. In fact, Jesus in John 13 put meat on these bones. He gave them an example. The disciples in John 13 were ready to have a meal, and Jesus got down on his hands and feet and washed their gross, dirty, stinky feet. So I'm serving you. I'm going to take the lowest position. I'm going to do the thing that nobody else wants to do. And so he starts washing their feet, and he gets to Peter, pious, loud-mouthed Peter. And Peter stands up and says, Jesus, you will never wash my feet. How dare you? How could you? You're the Lord. You're the teacher. You can't. Now, notice that Peter never said, let me wash your feet. What did he say? You just can't wash my feet. We'll find someone to do it, but it can't be you, and it certainly can't be me because I'm one of the greatest, see? And Jesus looks at Peter and says, if I don't do this, then I have no part in you, and you have no part in me. Jesus said, I'm doing this to set an example for you. I want you to do this to me. Do this to others. Follow my example. Was Jesus saying you need to go around with a squirt bottle and a rag and start washing people's feet? No, that would be weird. People will look at you funny. What he's saying is you need to serve, do the job, do the thing nobody else wants to do. Take the lowest position. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, it's coming. Pastor's going to ask me to serve in children's ministry. He already brought it up. He's going to ask me to serve on the coffee team or on the greeting team. I'm not, because none of that is what Jesus is talking about. What is Jesus talking about here? He's talking about serving people. See, it's not serving the church that Jesus is talking about. He's talking about serving real, honest to goodness people who are in your life right now. And Jesus says something in both of these passages, both the Luke and the Mark passage. He says, look, this is how the world works. But then he says something interesting. But among you, what's he say? It will be different. He doesn't say it might be. He doesn't say it should be, it ought to be. He says, among you, it will be different. I want to ask you an important question. When you think about what it means to be great, when you think about what it means to be a good person, do you think the way the world thinks, or do you think the way that Jesus thinks? To put it a different way, is it different with you? Is it different with you? Or do you just do things the way the world does? Now, the disciples, was it different with them? Was it different with the disciples when Jesus said it will be different with you? No. They're sitting around arguing about who's the greatest. They're asking Jesus for positions that they don't deserve. They want power and authority. They had this idea that Jesus was coming to establish a brand new kingdom, and when he was king, they would get to be the princes. And Jesus says, that's not what any of this is about. It's not power. It's not about position. It's not about how many Twitter followers you have. It's about how many people you impact on a daily basis. Is it different with you? Now you get your homework, right? You know what your homework is, right? It's not sneaky. What's your homework? Serve people. But I want to give a little meat on that bone, because we can walk out here and go, we'll serve people. Okay, I'll go work at Subway for a day, and there I serve people. Or I'll think about serving someone. Maybe I'll bring my wife breakfast in bed this week. I've served her. By the way, that's a good idea. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to serve someone's this week. Be great. by serving someone's this week. It's not real good grammar. But did you notice it's not just one person? What does it say? Someone's. You grammar people are your brains. You just can't even function right now. It's intentional. I want you to serve 4 people this week in 4 different categories. Number 1, I want you to serve your family. Serve your family. Husbands, that means you need to serve your wife. Wives, that means you need to serve your husbands. And don't say, you know what, don't worry, I won't serve you, you won't serve me, it cancels it out, we're good. Don't play that game. You actually need to serve. By the way, Scripture says it's not hearing the word, it's doing it that makes a difference. Husbands, look at your wife and find some way to serve her this week. Kids, I want all the children to look at me right now. No matter how bad, are you looking at me, son? Everyone looking at me. Kids, serve your parents this week. I'm going to tell you how to do it, and not one parent is going to argue with me this week, all right? When they ask you to do something this week, just do it. Don't argue, don't complain, don't say, but I did it last time, it's my sister or my brother's turn, and if you're an only child, that's a weird conversation. Just do it. And it will freak your parents out so much, they'll leave you alone because they won't want to break it. You say, take the trash out, and you take it out. They'll be like, I don't know what happened, but let's not mess with it. This is someone else's child, and we're keeping this child, right? Serve your parents. Parents, serve your kids. Why did all the kids say, yeah, that's what he said. You heard. That's the only thing kids in this room heard, right? Parents, serve your kids. Find a way to do something for them that they need done, and maybe they can't do. Do the job. Here'd be really freaky. Ask them to take the trash out and then take it out before they get a chance. But then ask them to do something else, because that's only fair. Serve your family. And imagine what your family would look like if everyone in your family was serving one another instead of trying to get out of serving one another. Would your family be different? Ooh. Would it be better? Yeah, give it a shot. See what happens. Number 2, I want you to serve your friends. Find a friend who needs something this week, who's going through something. Whether it could be at work, a neighbor, just someone that you've known for a long time. And find a way to practically make a difference in their lives. Write a note. Tell them you're thinking about them and praying for them. If they're going through something that you can practically help out with, practically help them out some way. Number 3, a total stranger. I want you to serve a total stranger this week. And by the way, I'm not asking you to do one of these. I'm asking you to do all of them. This may be the easiest one. You're in line to get coffee. Pay for the person's coffee behind you. Although it might be cheaper to pay for their groceries at the grocery store, depending on where you're at and how much coffee they're getting. Or you can get surprised. Pay for their groceries. Pay for their meal. If you're out and you see a couple that looks like they're having a great time, just bless them. Just tell the server, I'd like to pay for their meal. Find a way to find a stranger this week and do something nice for them. Serve them somehow, some way. Those are the easy ones. Are you ready for number 4? You know it's coming, right? Serve your enemy. Pastor, I did that 2 weeks ago. Or, Pastor, I thought we were done with that. I didn't do it 2 weeks ago. Why are you bringing it up now? I thought we were in the clear. Now, when Jesus says, love your enemies, what does he mean? Serve them. Take the lower position. I know you can get on your high horse. I know you're right and they're wrong. Jesus says, I want you to take everything and turn it upside down. Be wrong. Serve them anyway. Someone in first service was right. By now, you shouldn't even have any enemies because you should have loved them into friends. I'm sure that's happened everywhere, right? Do all 4 of these this week. And by the way, you might be able to double up on some. You might have an enemy who's in your family, and you can knock both of them out in one shot, right? I don't think your stranger can be in the, You get my point? You do this week, you will be great. Imagine how your life would be different if everybody in it was worried about serving one another, not being served. That's what Jesus wants us to do. Let's stand and pray. Father, you know I wrestled with this week. I've taught this many ways, and very often we think about this in terms of how people can serve the church. The good news is we can serve people within the confines of the church, and I pray that you'll help us to do that. But more importantly, I pray that you'll help us to find someone in each one of these categories. A family member that we can serve, a friend that we can serve, a complete stranger, and just trust that you're going to point us out to somebody who really needs it at that particular moment. And then the really hard one, Father, is our enemy, either someone who we can't stand or someone who can't stand us. Someone who's hurt us, someone who's wronged us, someone who we've wronged, we've hurt for one reason or another. Help us to see them as you see them, as we talked about last week. To see that you love and care for them, and let us in all four of these cases show the love of Jesus in their lives. To serve not because it's going to gain us something, but because it's going to make a difference in somebody else's life. And that's what greatness is. Father, help us be great today and over the course of this week and for the rest of our lives. And all God's people said, amen. One more act of service you can do? Stack a chair. God bless you. Have a great one.